Spider-Man Noir issue 1 heads to Midtown Manhattan, where Peter Parker is listening to the radio during lunch, hearing about the war brewing in Europe and if the gangsters and crime families will play nice during the rise of the Third Reich. Suddenly Peter hears gunshots, so grabbing his mask, the Spider-Man takes to the streets. Angered, someone decided to rob a bank in his town during his lunch break. He lands on the criminal's car, shooting out the front window and causing the car to swerve around the road, heading towards some civilians. Shooting out the tires, he causes the car to swerve into a lamppost, crashing and sending the men flying through the car and into the webbing Peter had put across the windows. Later, as the criminals are arrested by the police, the Spider-Man meets with Jameson, surprised that the reporter is out on the street beat. Jameson says that he's headed up to the Black Cat, Felicia Hardy's club, since it's been hit hard. Joining Jameson, Peter goes to the Black Cat, bribing the cops to let them into the crime scene, where Peter finds something that doesn't add up with the speakeasy. He recognizes one of the dead women as Holly Babson, a waitress who was a police informant. In her hands, he finds a beetle-shaped brooch, as the cops tell them that their time at the scene is up. Taking to the streets, Peter knows that between the blimp of Nazis last month and the recent bank robberies, things are getting dark in the city, and it's all thanks to the chaos of the war brewing. Heading to Queens, he watches Aunt May from outside as Mary Jane arrives. Both go inside to celebrate Aunt May's birthday, where talk turns to the deceased Holly Babson. Peter asks when MJ last saw her and learns MJ was hoping Holly could get a few more girls she works with at the community center placed at the Black Cat for work. But Peter says the Black Cat won't be hiring anytime soon, as he shows her a picture of the Beetle pendant, which is a surprise to MJ since none of the women she works with have any money, so something that expensive looks out of place. Aunt May quiets them as the evening hour begins on the radio, reporting of the headlines across the country and of course on the war. Peter later heads to the New York Public Library, where he begins his research into the Beetle pendant. Not paying any attention to the red-dressed woman he knocks into, he continues his research into the Beetle, learning it is a cicada tied to Babylon. Suddenly the light goes out in the building and it shakes, knocking over the book stacks. As everyone writes themselves, Peter returns to his book, but finds the page he was investigating has been ripped out. Peter sees the red-dressed woman escaping with the page, so he takes off after her, but loses her in the busy street outside. Soon he notices a poster for the Twilight of Babylon exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, so heading there, he meets with the curator of the Babylon exhibit, finding it to be a woman who is the splitting image of Holly Babson. He shows her the pendant, which the woman recognizes as her sister's, who Peter knew as Holly, but her real name was Helga Bergman, and the curator is her sister, Dr. Huma Bergman. Peter tells Huma her sister is dead, causing the woman to faint, so Peter takes her out for some fresh air, going to a diner where he learns the pendant is the cicada stone, and Dr. Heinrich Hellstrom was supposed to carry it by hand from Berlin since it was too valuable to ship by blimp. Peter wonders if it was valuable enough to kill over, and how did it wind up in her sister's hands, and if it was missing from Heinrich Hellstrom. Huma says her sister didn't even know Hellstrom, so she doesn't know how she could have it. Huma knows they need to get to the bottom of this, but Peter knows that Hellstrom doesn't want to be found. Huma wants Peter to help her, however, but he says he's too busy with the 5 boroughs, but Huma says that if he changes his mind, he should meet her at the White Plains airfield the next morning at 7. Peter tells her not to hold her breath as he leaves. Huma says that with his great power comes great responsibility, but Peter knows with great power comes a great big power bill from the city. Peter swings his way home, continuing to think over the stone and how the young woman ended up with it. Arriving at Aunt May's, he meets with MJ, but is suddenly attacked by a man with a flashing weapon. MJ hits the man as Peter's eyes are blinded, but he fights the pain off as Aunt May calls for him as 2 more men have come for her. Peter uses his webs to knock the men down, but the flash weapon goes off again, blinding the heroes and letting the men escape. In the aftermath, Peter looks after MJ, telling her that he recognized the men as one of the photographers at the Black Cat crime scene, and he must have been following Peter around. MJ wonders if this has something to do with Holly's death, but Peter says that they won't know since he turned down the case. Aunt May asks him why, and Peter says that he needs to keep her, MJ, and the city safe, but May says that no one is safe thanks to the war. MJ knows that Aunt May is right, but Peter knows that he can't stop the war from happening. The women know that, but they want him to at least try. May tries to tell him what comes with great power, but Peter gets it, saying it's complicated. The next morning at White Plains, Huma is met by Peter, who boards the plane and begins his research into the excavation Homer and Heinrich were having, telling Homer that he will only take the case if she's ready for what he will find as they head off towards Europe. Spider-Man Noir issue 1 opened up a really fun and engaging story set within the Noir Earth, fulfilling all of the hallmarks of a 1940s detective gumshoe mystery. What I really enjoyed about the book, however, was jumping right into the mystery of a dead woman with a mysterious beetle pendant that looks to put Peter on a route that's very similar to sort of like an Indiana Jones adventure serial, which is a really cool direction to take the character. It's wildly fun, and I really like that they're kind of flipping it, and it's not just going to be your normal New York grimy detective 1940s mystery. It's going to have that little extra flair in it. I'm looking forward to how that adds more character depth to these already cool versions of the characters, and I'm excited to see which other famous Spider-Man villains and other heroes will appear in this book. I'm going to give this issue a 9.5 out of 10.